Well, now with our acquired knowledge about beating 1, we can now go into the subject of beating 2. Remember we said that the first beat of any bar must be down and the last beat up. So it stands to reason that if we are beating 2, 1 is going to be down and 2 is up. That's all. Simple, like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now we're making progress. The next thing to master is beating 3. And here the only thing we don't know about is the second beat, the in-between beat, because we do know that 1 is going to be down, and 3 being the last one is going to be up. Now, the in-between beat, or 2, is simply a sideways beat out away from the body, so that the whole thing looks like a triangle. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Beautiful. Well, now all we have left to learn is the beating of 4. As we know, again, 1 is going to be down, and 4 is going to be up. 2 this time will be a sideways motion in toward the middle of the body, and 3 will be out away from the body. So that the whole thing goes 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is a little complicated, so let's try to do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Well, now that we have conducted Beethoven's Ninth and Schubert's Unfinished Symphony and Peter and the Wolf, we are ready to conduct almost anything. For example, if we are confronted by music that goes in 5 beats to the bar, all we have to do is break it down into a combination of 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2, like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, which makes 5, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, which also makes 5. So if you are ever in the happy position of having suddenly to conduct the second movement of Tchaikovsky's Pathetique Symphony, which has 5 beats in a bar, all you have to do is alternate beating 2 and 3, and you will come out beating 5, like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Well, now that we and the conductor all know how to beat, the next problem is, where and how does this poor conductor practice? A pianist has a piano in his house and he practices on it. Likewise, a piccolo player or even a tuba player. But a conductor needs an instrument which is far too expensive to buy and far too large to house. It's a real problem for a young conductor, and he usually has to practice all by himself in thin air, perhaps in front of a mirror, perhaps following a phonograph recording, but rarely with an orchestra following him. Let's assume, however, that he has mastered the art of beating. He is still at the very beginning of the road to becoming a conductor. The plain truth is that this business of beating must do more than simply count out the time for the players. It must also convey the character of the music. There's an old wives' tale about conducting which says that the right hand must simply mark time, while the left hand is in charge of expressing emotions. So this is sheer nonsense. No conductor can divide himself into two people, a time beater and an interpreter. The interpretation must be first in the time beating itself. For example, there are infinite ways of beating a simple 2. And a conductor should be able to convey all these ways, all the qualities that these ways show, with his left hand tied behind his back. Now let's take Brahms' First Symphony as an example. The conductor should be able to beat a short, sharp, or staccato 2, or he should be able to beat a warm, smooth, singing 2, which is called in music legato. Or he should be able to beat a broad, sustained 2. Or a light, playful 2. Or a dramatic, stormy 2. Or any other number of subtle deviations. However, a conductor cannot only beat in a vacuum. He has to beat at a certain rate of speed, in what is called a tempo. But first he must have the gift of finding the true tempo. Wagner said that this also was one of the prime requisites of being a conductor, the ability to find a true tempo. But what is the true tempo? No two conductors agree. And if you should listen to 6 different performances of the same piece by 6 different conductors, you are likely to hear 6 different tempi. And yet each one of these conductors is convinced that his tempo is the only true one. So we are left with a situation where conductors become mortal enemies over a tempo, and where music lovers wrangle endlessly about their favorite conductors. Now, just to show you how differently musicians can conceive of the tempo of the same piece, let's listen to a recording of the first few bars of Bach's Second Brandenburg Concerto, first as conducted by Fritz Reiner. Listen. Fine. Now, as played by Pablo Casals. And finally, as conducted by Karl Haas. Gives you an idea. Highly controversial, of course. But the main thing is that whatever tempo a conductor picks, he must stick to it, keep it steady. This is not so easy as it sounds. Most conducting students have a hard time, once they take a tempo, not getting faster or slower. Of course, very often, a conductor deliberately wishes not to keep a steady tempo. In other words, he wants to have a free flow instead of a mechanical one. This is called in music rubato, a word which in Italian literally means robbed, but which is used in music in the sense of robbing Peter to pay Paul. In other words, we steal a little time from one beat and give it back in another, and in so doing, create a kind of liberty or free play among the beats, which takes it out of the straitjacket of machine-like time beating. So instead of beating 1, 2, 3, 4, like a clock on and on, we can shorten one beat and lengthen another proportionately, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. You see? Now here, for example, is a bit of Chopin, which I will play without any rubato at all. Rather dull, isn't it? Now here it is, the same piece, played with a highly exaggerated rubato. As you can see, the rubato can be greatly abused. In fact, unless it is handled very delicately, in a way justified by the style and sense of the music itself, it can degenerate into the worst kind of sentimentality. But used with taste, it is an indispensable part of every conductor's equipment.